Wake up your morning in a brand new way with the positive people, places, events, and things in and around your neighborhood and around the world. No matter where you live, your mornings are about to get better. It's the refreshing way to start your day. No doom or gloom, just bright sunshine no matter what the weather. Metro Magazine with Bonnie McDaniel. Inspiring, informative, intelligent, Ion. Positively the best way to start your morning. Good morning and welcome to Metro Magazine. If you're just joining us for the second half of this interview, I have to tell you you've missed a treat because we started out last week with an expanded version of Metro Magazine, and we are talking to a mother-daughter, very dynamic group of couple of women who are going to be sharing their journeys. We talked with the author last week of Yesterday When I Was Crazy, and I do hope you caught the interview. And this morning we're actually going to be joined by her daughter. And I love this. You're with Redhead Productions. That's your company.
Yes.
And your name is Sylver. I mean, you got
it's
it
a little
all
confusing,
going
but
on. But you know what? I love that. So you're here to talk about your new CD project called Groovement.
Yeah.
And before we get there, though, I want to talk to Sylver about, because I know you have some interesting stuff you need to share. So why don't we start out and tell the audience, what is it that you do? I know you're a singer, a dancer, and all that wonderful stuff. So why don't you give us a quick little background?
Well, I am, as you said, a singer, performer, songwriter, producer. I started out in dance, and then I went to modeling, and from all of that, I went to Duke Ellington School of the Arts in Georgetown.
Okay.
Yay, Ellington. And from there, I want to say that it's almost like I walked out the doors and then my career started. It kind of almost happened, not quite that easily, but I went from Duke Ellington to, believe it or not, to an airline academy. Most people don't know this about me.
Okay.
But I went to an airline academy in Florida because I come from a very highly educated background. My aunts and uncles and my mother, they all have degrees up the wazoo, or, my grandfather was a college president. My grandmother was a professor and a music professor and an English professor.
No pressure, right?
No pressure at all. And I was the, artistic one, if you will. And so I think for me, my mother said to me, as long as you are doing what you need to do, then you have to find that path. Do you have to go to college? You don't have to. But whatever you do, you better be very good at it. You know what I mean? Those are your options. And because I was, I think, naturally motivated when I was, on days when you take your kids to work day type of thing, I would be in the office and I would have met everybody on her staff. I would be sharpening pencils, emptying trash cans. Back then you were changing toners in the copy machines,
right.
And I made myself busy and I made myself involved, and I was the little helper in the office. And when I finally was flying at a young age, and back then you could, put a tag on your child and send them with the person, and they put them in the seat, and the flight attendants would look after you. And by the time I got off, the flight attendants all knew my name. I knew the pilot. I knew, everybody. I had my little wings, and she's just a little helper. You can't do that now.
Right.
But in that time, so I think I always had the go-get-it energy, and that was my surrounding. There was no laying around doing nothing. When we went to, myself and all my cousins every summer went to my grandmother's house in the mountains of North Carolina.
Oh, wow.
And even though we got to play and watch TV and sleep in late, we still had to go to the library and get a book. We still had to, do chores, and we still had to, we were off, but she was a natural teacher. So we had to stay active and stay into things. And I, back then, would take my cousins, God bless them, and I would put together a show.
Wow.
Okay.
Now, how old were you when you were doing this?
Somewhere between, I would say, 7 and maybe 10, somewhere in that, and maybe even a little younger, but somewhere in there. And at the time, there were 6 of us. and I'm the second oldest of this, the first oldest girl, the second oldest of the six of us, and kind of the responsible one. I did the other two girls' hair. I did, you know, things like that. And so during the summers, I would always put together a show. So by the time our parents came to get us at the end of the summer, we were performing this show. And we would have.
So you were producing back then?
I was producing back then. And I tell my friends all the time, it is really in my DNA. I don't even know where that came from outside of my babysitter days when I was in class with her. Yeah. Right. So I guess it had to have seeped in because there's no other way I could have, you know, received that kind of.
So your mom had a huge impact on you.
Oh, still to this day. Yeah, still to this day. And so even then I would take them. I mean, we had curtain calls. We had intermission. I was serving Twinkies and Sun Drop to my audience.
Now you need to tell people what Sun Drop is.
Oh, Sun Drop is soda pop from back in the day.
Right,
this is before I think Mountain Dew and all the new fancy sodas we have now. Back then Sun Drop was the Sprite and Sierra Mist of its time back then, you know, and the Mountain Dew of its time. And so we had Sun Drop and Twinkies and cupcakes, and that's what we served. And we did curtain call, you know, and I think, and I've never been any different. I've never been any different. And I think that coming out of Ellington and, you know, my choice to pick a trade was kind of to appease my grandmother, may she rest in peace, and certain people go, pick a school, because you were going to school. And I was like, okay, how about an airline academy? My mom said, funny. Whatever.
With the idea to do what? To be a
flight attendant, because I thought, and I think again, from my early years of traveling, you know what I mean? It seemed like something cool to do, and you did have to go to school for it, because back then you had to learn airport codes and you know, all those kinds of things that are completely different now. Some of those things still remain, but so when I left Florida and finished the school, I came back to Washington. That was in Kissimmee, Florida, and I came back to DC, and I started to work at National Airport when we had Butler Aviation. Now, you know, that was a minute ago. It's not there anymore. And I've done everything from work on the ramp to de-ice planes to move chocks and start the engines and
wow.
But I knew, and then at the time they were looking for minorities to go into air traffic controlling. One day in that tower, and I said, okay, I need to go back to the stage. This is no Lord.
What, a lot of pressure?
Woo! Oh, listen. Kudos to every air traffic controller out there, because that job is not for wimps, let me tell you.
Yeah.
And your
when
perception.
You think about the fact that you're literally, people's lives are in your hands and based upon the judgment call that you make. Yeah.
And this was before, you know, GPS the way we know it now in 3D, and it's talking to you and it's telling you the streets, it's telling you the, you know, all the kind of little things. Back then the screen was black with the little green dots on it. You know what I mean?
Wow.
And you had to determine the distance, the longitude, latitude. My math doesn't do any of that. So I said, I can count money, that's about it. But there will be none of that. None of the degrees of this and no.
I have to ask you a question. Did you know all of this was in her when she was coming up? Because I'm telling you, I'm sitting here and my head is just spinning listening to her.
Well, you know, in a sense, I acquired some knowledge of that when I was studying and doing my master's, because there was a category of personality called psychosocially gifted.
Okay.
And I knew that she had those characteristics.
Okay.
She was always a social butterfly. She was always going up to people and speaking to them, and you know, and she just had a magical relationship with people, you know, that I knew was going to be useful later on.
And you know what? And you're very fortunate that your mother encouraged you to do what worked for you.
Yeah.
As long as you worked at whatever you did.
Exactly.
She was like, listen, you pick something, and 5, 6, 7, 8, as we say on the stage. But she never once said, get a real job. She never once said, what are you going to fall back on? Never once to this day. And so I never looked at it. I didn't start to feel weird about college until much later. You know what I mean? After a while, it played on my nerves a little bit. Okay, now you had no excuse, you know what I mean? But it just wasn't my journey. It just wasn't my path. It wasn't, you know. Now, with that being said, if you can go, whatever the school is.
Right, right.
If you can go, go. You know what I mean? Whether you graduate, whether you stay, whether you change, none of that matters. You know, it is about getting as much information as you can.
And you touch on a great point, because a lot of, and this is not a negative, a lot of people are not cut out for the structure
Right.
of the classroom
Yes.
on a college
Yes.
campus. There are
Yes.
many people who need to go right to whatever the gift or
Absolutely.
the craft.
Yeah.
And I think Europeans, they recognize that, and they do it a lot better than we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is why you have a lot of the kids growing up in Europe go to trade schools. They become apprentices in
Yes.
whatever it is they're trying to do. And I think that for a lot of people, that may be the path, and not to feel that there's something wrong with you because you don't have 15
Exactly.
college degree letters behind your
Absolutely.
name.
Right.
As long as you're good at what you do.
Right. And I had a fear of, I had a fear of test taking a bit. I had a fear of those. I didn't take the SAT. I was like, I just broke out in a rash at the mere thought of it. It did something to me. You know, it really did. I don't know what. I tried
She's like,
for about
no,
2 seconds.
we're not
I was
doing
like, okay, that's no, honey. And I thought to myself, you won't get past the test.
Wow.
You won't get past the test, so there's no point, which is completely destructive, negative thinking. But at the time, it was, you know, you have a ridiculously smart mother, you have a ridiculously smart grandmother and grandfather. All of your, you know, and I don't mean to say that we have no issues, because that's another show, because we have issues. Jesus. I'm back. But what I'm saying is that overall, our family was, you know, the education was strong, the talent was strong, and the ability to sort of go out and try different things. Like my grandmother, wow. I remember her saying, well, you know, your first year of college, you got to goof off a little while. And then your second year, you know, and she would break it down because, and it's real what
Yes,
she
it
was
is,
saying.
it is.
And everybody else is, you know,
Yeah.
and she said, well, no, you got to goof off first. And
Grandmas
then by
are
the next
cool,
year,
right?
you'll figure it out. And then you got to get busy.
Right.
You know, and she was very, and that applied to whatever it was. She believed in a little fun
Yes.
and a little cutting up. But when it came time to speak and relate and communicate, there was no plan.
Right,
You know what I
right,
mean?
right.
So there was a little bit of both. My mother still is that way. She can cut up and go in on you as well in terms of having fun and not taking
and
herself
having
too seriously.
fun. Exactly, having
know?
fun is
Yes.
important. I was
yeah.
speaking to
Totally
you earlier,
important.
asking off camera, asking if people found you intimidating because you're serious about the work you do, and I
Yeah.
shared that.
Yes, absolutely.
I meet people who feel that way about me, not understanding, and then sometimes I may be in mixed company, and all of a sudden this thing comes out of nowhere, and they're sitting there and they're completely confused, like,
Right.
Which person is that?
Right.
and I'm like, there are many
same way?
layers to me, and I know how to fun. I have fun.
Yeah.
I laugh.
Yeah.
I'm not always looking like this. I get
Right.
dirty. I mean,
Exactly.
wherever I happen to be,
Yeah.
I'm totally cool there.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's good that you were raised
Yeah.
with
Yeah,
that idea.
And we all, you know, still act a fool and have fun, but then when it's time to be professional and
Right.
serious, then we have that too. And,
Exactly.
And with all of our issues, you know, we all have that.
We
and I
should,
think
yeah.
we were all, you know, that comes down through the bloodline and the DNA in my family in particular, you know. And I'm, you know, raised by my mother, my grandparents. She was a single mom. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. But it was right for my life, knowing what I know now. It was
Yeah,
right for
yeah.
my life.
Wow.
And I have siblings, but I didn't grow up with them. So I lived and have lived and always lived as an only child with extended cousins. But when I tell you, all of my friends and almost everybody I know calls my mom mom.
Yeah.
We have so much in common because my children, their
Yeah.
friends do the same thing.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
yeah.
it's and to hear her tell it, I brought everybody home, and including
Yeah.
Yes,
animals.
she did.
I am a
Yeah.
and still kind of do.
Still.
It's not unusual, but so I was telling you that I went kind of straight from Ellington and into the airline industry. I did that for a little while, and then after that, air traffic control, and then I went into to interview for a flight attendant for F-27s and the smaller planes that have 50 people, one flight attendant, small crew. But I realized that I could not. I was also singing in bands at the time, wedding bands and, you know, that kind of thing, corporate. And I realized that I couldn't do both. Because when you first start out in the airline academy, you get all the crappy shifts, you get all the, you know, the terrible hours, and you can't take off, and you can't. And I thought, I got a gig Saturday. I can't do this. You know, there's no missing the gig ever. Okay. So I let that go. I started, I'm trying to remember exactly. I think I started singing with Nathan Heathman. Yes. A wonderful, wonderful artist. He's passed on now, from also from DC, who connected me. He was Gene Carnes' music director.
Who I absolutely
Don't let it go to your head. No. Shout out to my girl Gene.
She is.
And when I tell you, she will still sing you Under the Table right now today.
Oh, I've gone to a couple of shows over at Blues Alley.
Oh yeah.
And Miss Jane. I'm like, okay, what is she taking with all that energy?
Yeah. And so Nathan brought me to Jean. Jean brought me to another woman named Philippa Brisbane, who became my manager. She too has crossed over since. And Philippa took me, and Jean took me to the wonderful Deanna Williams, who is, you know, a radio personality in the whole Philly international scene. And then Deanna Williams took me to Nile Rodgers and the late Bernard Edwards.
Wow.
Yeah. So I have been mentored to this day. When Jean comes, and if I'm anywhere near the stage, it's come here, Miss Thing, and get a mic. Come on, don't.
Wow.
And I go right back into background mode, and you know, do my parts and carry on. And but I started with Jean, and singing in bands, and it just and the things I learned at Ellington, I started in the dance. I went there for dance. I was dancing with Laverne Reed and Adrian Bolton and all of those beautiful people who were really doing it back in the day. And I was under Sandra Fortune and Lynn Welters, who are still teaching to this day. Sandra Fortune, I believe, is at Jones and Haywood, and I'm not sure where Lynn is, but I know she's still teaching. And back then, boy, they scared the bejesus out of you back then. If you especially if you had a little talent, they really stuck it to you back then. Right. And I got really, talk about intimidated, because we were auditioning for things, and they would encourage you to audition because the point was to get rejected, so that you could get used to that and learn from it and grow from it. And sometimes we get the gig, you know, and then have to go to rehearsal, and then they'd fuss at us for not being in class because we were at rehearsal for the very thing we auditioned for that we weren't supposed to get.
Wow.
So it kind of worked out, but I got a little scared. And I said, you know, my mother always said, I don't know why you don't sing. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. I was twirling on the floor and modeling and, you know, giving all that. Wasn't thinking about singing.
And, you know, you mentioned that you also sing.
Yes.
But you said you sing in the church choir.
And she has more of a, she's a mezzo,
classical,
classical. And I definitely have the
R&B. So you're a mezzo soprano?
Yes, I'm a mezzo, trained singer.
Yeah. And she's a big voice, big voice. And I didn't. I was very shy.
So does Mama have I mean, you turn it on like that. So Mama, do you turn it on like that?
Well, not
yes
really.
And no, not really. It depends. I mean, for me.
That's a good God is.
There you
go. There you go. Yes, you learn from a pro.
The apple
I
and the
tree.
The apple and the tree. But,
gosh. Well, you know what? I want to take a quick break.
Absolutely.
We can grab a little water.
Yes, ma'am.
And we're going to come back because I want to hear all about Sylver and this fascinating new project. And we're going to come right back with more Metro Magazine.
When you throw away money on wasted electricity, you're throwing away everything you could have bought with it. Saving energy saves you money.
And we're back with more Metro Magazine. You can tell we've been cracking up. In addition to having all your other gifts, you are so funny.
Well, thank you.
We were, just so you all can peek in for a minute, we were talking about Shamar Moore.
Jesus, Lord, help me.
And we're all having hot flashes right now.
Sweating out my kitchen back here. I have to watch that now. Ooh, that man.
Oh my gosh.
Well, I'm not going to go there because we'll be here and we don't have that kind of time.
How do you do those breathing exercises?
Right.
Right.
What was
right now? Out through the mouth. bang or one
There we
more.
go.
Back.
Okay,
Okay.
I'm back.
You're back.
Anyway, so we were talking about the fact that you had used all of your airline experience and
Yes.
things that that particular thing people didn't know about you, and how it had brought you to the space of being able to sing and all of that. And we were talking about Jean Carn.
Yes, Jean Carn, Mama Jean.
Yeah.
She, I've been so blessed to meet people and have met people that, like Jean, like Philippa, like April, that have really embraced me. You know what I mean?
Oh, I know what you mean.
Oftentimes, listen, I walk in the room, I am hated on sight. Hated on sight. The nerve. Who does she think she is? What is all that about? You know what I mean? And then by the time I have engaged or we've engaged, it's like, you know, I like your hair, you know, or that's a cute top, or you know what I mean? It goes from to hey girl, you know what I mean? And I think I learned even on stage to you know, get the women. If you get the women on your side, get the women on your side, you know.
You're good
and
to
I
go.
get on stage and I get out there. Where my sister friends at? Girls, make some, you know, whatever it is. And so, and that to me was because the sensitive person in me, which I'm extremely sensitive, extremely sensitive. I started to, you know, do the info. People, why are you so sensitive? You know, it comes off like there's something wrong with being sensitive. And for a long time, and there's nothing wrong with it. But for a long time, it was difficult because I did want to be liked. And when you have that, and I know you all can both relate, when you have that I'm the different one thing, then wanting to be liked because you already know that you're different. You know what I mean? Becomes a longing. And so you get around those people and you want that. You know, you don't want people in there giving you the side eye and, you know, having those multiple conversations. And then I started to get to the point, come on, mommy, why doesn't anybody, you know, that whole thing. And then finally I got to, I think she said to me one day, you know, it's clearly because they don't know you. Because if they did, then
they'd realize that,
you know, that you're not that
so
bad, you know? And I think that made me go, okay, well, okay, give me a minute. You know, get a few songs in and, you know, have a little fun. And, you know, I make jokes about myself all the time. You know what I mean? But it's
because
fun.
you don't take yourself so seriously.
I really don't.
And that's so important.
I mean, I am very serious about what I'm doing, why I'm doing it. But I don't get so caught up in all the craziness, and this comes with experience. It's not something you get when you're 17. You don't even get it when you're 23. You know what I mean? If you're paying attention, you start, you know, discovering it by 25. You know what I mean? But that's only if you're looking for it. And if you're trying to figure out whatever that is, then some part of you either gets more comfortable with yourself or you make the adjustments to become more comfortable with yourself. You know, I think. And
so if I could interrupt, you went from airlines, you went from Duke Ellington to airline school, and you discovered singing, and that was something that you wanted to do. What was that?
Well, I was
like?
singing at Ellington.
You were singing.
I was singing at Ellington, but I think that I was singing in there were like an a cappella group. My three girlfriends who are ridiculous, stand in the middle of the floor, don't move, sing the paint off the walls singers. Okay.
That's some singing.
Woo!
Sing the paint off the walls. Okay.
Pam Frazier, Gina Best, Kivette, Cartledge Burwell.
Wow.
I mean, Gwen Ross. My girlfriends, we all went to Duke Ellington together, and they could just, you know, I would stand back and just look at them because I was the dancer who came to sing, and they were just straight up singers, you know. And but I could hear harmony. I could sing the part. I wasn't interested in being the lead. I wasn't interested in being out front, which is hysterical now.
I love the fact that you appreciated their gift, because that's something that a lot of people. They're always, I find, and this happens with women a lot. Women are always comparing themselves. Am I better than she, or she better than myself? The fact that you appreciated the fact that these women were phenomenal. That's a
then.
gift in
Yeah.
and of itself.
Yeah,
It says a
thank
lot
you.
about
Thank
you
you.
and a lot about what your mom instilled
Thank
in
you.
you.
Well, yeah, I could. It was not only obvious, but it was just, it's just true. Some things you just don't have to make up, and they were divas before we were using that word.
Right.
You know what I mean? And not in the attitude sense of the word, but
Sure.
in their
In the
talent,
gift, yeah.
in the gift. And to be honest, I was the secondary one, if you will. You know what I mean? And they never said that. It never was said, because my part was significant. It didn't have to be lead. You know what I mean? To be significant. So.
Say that again.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many nice little nuggets coming out in this
thank
conversation
you.
with you and your mom. You said that it doesn't have to be lead in order to be significant.
Yes.
And that's
Yes.
another thing. If people could grasp and just embrace and dwell in that space of,
Yeah.
and it's not that it's insignificant.
No,
Absolutely.
absolutely not.
It
Absolutely
means that
not.
someone else is right now has the spotlight on them.
Exactly.
It doesn't mean, for instance, if you look at a play where you have a very large cast, the person who's singing the lead at the moment, the spot is on them. However,
Right.
everyone else is still there.
cast.
They haven't gone away.
That's right.
Absolutely.
And they support what the lead
Exactly.
is doing. And that
And
has to
without that
happen.
support, the lead can't do what
Absolutely.
they
Right.
do.
I mean,
Exactly.
and let's
Yeah,
just
absolutely. All
flip
works
the
together.
script for a second. Let's just say we're talking about surgery, and you're a brilliant surgeon, and you're about to go in and do something that only 5 of you can do in the whole world, and blah 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 blah. But you're not giving the anesthesia.
Right.
You know what I mean? You're not doing the incision.
Right.
You're not doing the closing.
Right.
There are other people for that.
They're
who
all in
specialize
supporting
in
roles.
that.
Right.
So you might go, I don't know nothing about giving anesthesia. I don't work with that machine. But yet you're a brilliant brain surgeon,
Right.
who's about to cut this skull open and fix whatever's wrong. That team, those
Right.
surgical nurses, the anesthesiologist, down to the janitor.
Right. Who's
Who
going to
cleaned
clean
the
it up.
room.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? All of those elements, regardless of your career. Shout out to the teachers and the secretaries and the sound technicians and the behind the scenes people who make those of us on camera and on stage and in surgery make it all work.
Right.
Because
right.
all of that has to happen to make it work.
Exactly.
No more than you
Exactly.
can bake a cake without an egg, or, okay, for the vegans out there, don't give me no mess, but y'all know what I mean. Whatever the alternative egg is that you put in that cake. But at the end of the day, you still have to have those things to get the cake,
Right, right.
So I'm grateful because, I still have a good team, small but
Right.
mighty, and learning those things from those women from that school. Dr. Elaine Todd, who was my history teacher, and the one and only Edward Jackson, who is the reason I am a singer to this day. He's my
Wow.
voice teacher in Ellington. And we had a connection. We had a connection. And he could get things out of me vocally that I argued him down didn't exist, and he could pull it out of me. And so after leaving Ellington, trying this airline thing, singing in bands, blah, 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 doing plays, doing fashion shows, the band thing, the music thing grew. It just grew.
Kind of rose to the
The
top, yeah.
opportunities became different. I love to say I've never had to compromise myself for a gig.
Good for you.
There are better singers than me. There are better, writers than me. There are better than, I've never had to do anything that I am ashamed to go to God for, in the name of my career. Won't
Good
do
for
it
you.
now.
Good
And
for
don't
you.
encourage anybody to do it.
Good for you.
And I say that because still right now to this day, I am faced with that kind of energy to get to the next level. I've had to walk away from some tremendous, sure, you can have this distribution and reality television, all those kind of things, and you can fill in the blank. I was like, ugh, okay, well, it's not going to be that one.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And then I go home and, try to get in a bottle of wine and, and just, bring my nerves.
She's not drinking. She wants to get in
Right,
the
get in the
bottle.
bottle. Okay, just bring me a straw. Okay. But, because it's heavy. It's
it is.
you're like, really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
And so after, when you get past that and you start to go, that wasn't for you. That wasn't for you. This wasn't for you.
And it's what a beautiful place to be when you realize that not everything is for you.
Not everything is for you.
And it's okay to walk away. And it's having that ability to trust God. That everything that's supposed to be yours will be yours at the time, at the appointed time. Exactly. But it takes
that's something to get.
It really is.
And you have to kind of remind yourself, like, program your little fancy phones, put it in there, just give yourself a note to ring every day to remind you of those kinds of things, because it can get away. As my mother speaks all the time about ego and how intense the ego can be. You have to have an ego. You definitely have to have an ego to be in show business, but you also have to keep your ego in check to the point where it doesn't override your humility.
And you know what? Ego, I think, is really that thing that makes you care.
Okay. I received that. Okay. The ego is
it's
the thing
what
that
makes you care. Because when you care about something, you take care of it.
You do.
Whatever that gift is. So that's what ego is. It's about caring when it's in balance.
And that's a much more positive light on ego.
So yes, I have an ego. I have a big old ego.
Absolutely.
Because I care. I care intensely about what I do.
As do the brain surgeon we talked about, or the football player, or the lighting technician, or the doorman.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And those things are important, because regardless of what you do as a profession, that's just what you need in life. I don't care if you cleaning toilets. Clean them, honey, with ego and all. You know what I'm saying? Sing while you get in the corners, if that's what it takes,
With a toothbrush, right?
With a toothbrush, but go for it. And, and I tell people all the time, there's a lot of things I'm not good at. You know what I mean? There are things I'm not good at, and know what that is. But in any case, I feel really fortunate that, that my path so far has been very blessed. It has obstruction. It has craziness, because you can't have a path that doesn't.
Exactly.
Where's that path?
Not a good one.
Let's go.
Not a good one.
Yeah. But I have survived it. I have had encouragement and direction and discernment from it, and still learning. Still figuring a lot of things out. But I'm clear about taking the journey to figure it out.
Now I'm going to ask you a question when we come back. We're going to take another quick break, and when I come back, I want to put you on the spot.
Okay.
To ask you a question. I never put people in uncomfortable places.
Okay.
To embarrass me, so don't worry about that. So we're going to come right back.
Okay.
More Metro Magazine.
This is what I say to everybody. Oh, this is what I say to everybody. Yeah, you gotta love somebody today. Don't wait, you gotta love somebody today. If you can hear me sing, gotta love somebody today. To show you what the love feels like. And now we're gonna show you what love sounds like.
Sylver, when we went to break, I said I was going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
And ask you a question. You have this lovely woman sitting next to you who I am just absolutely fascinated with, because of your journey and the things that you're bringing to, I know so many people need to hear. If I could ask you, what is the greatest lesson that you've learned from your mother?
Wow. Only one?
Yeah, I want one.
Oh.
Because I know there have been many. She's amazing.
Wow.
What's the greatest lesson you've learned?
Well, the greatest lesson that I've learned, some of them I'm still learning. For instance, she has sniper Navy SEAL discipline. Okay.
She said sniper.
Oh.
Navy SEAL discipline.
She has discipline, honey, that makes the military look like pussycats. When all the things that she spoke about, the years of therapy, the years of treatment, the years of trying this, trying that. I mean, like, there was no, I'll get to it. It daily, on schedule, on time, you know, just that, if I could package it and bottle it, you know what I mean? It would be intravenously injected into my body because I didn't inherit that in that same way.
Yeah.
I think what I've learned a lot, the biggest lesson, maybe forgiveness and love, because
Wow.
she could be filled with so much hate and disdain for everything. It wouldn't even be funny and totally understandable.
Wow.
When you go through a life of pain and you look a certain way, you know, you can't see, HIV right off the break either. You know what I mean? You can't always see cancer either. But somehow when you say that, people go, oh. But fibromyalgia was like, I'm sorry, what? What is that? Okay. You know, and you get that, what is she talking about? Look,
Right,
you know,
right.
and when you live through that, it does something to your spirit. It does something to your heart. It does something to the way that you communicate with people and the way that you move forward. And she was able to live in that darkness for years under all kind of treatment, a bowl of medication, you know, that ran her life like crack, okay? And to come single-handedly detox every single thing, to find alternative treatment after alternative treatment, or I should say complemented treatment to what she was already going through. And then to come through all of that and still have a forgiving heart in nature,
Wow.
you know, is a lesson that most of us don't get.
Yeah.
We think we're forgiving because you stole my boyfriend back in high school. You know what I mean? That's not what I'm talking
But
about.
if you're still carrying that weight around,
Yeah,
you haven't.
I'm talking about the kind of thing where the victim in you, you know what I mean? Because you are victimized. You are, you know, thrown under the bus, you know, and then backed up and run back over again. You know what I mean? And after years of it, days of it, hours of it, months of it, everybody you communicate with on some level only gets it on the surface, even your family. You know what I mean? To survive that, live through that, now manage it, you know what I mean? And to be able to still walk in love, to sing to the glory, to embrace people, that would have to be, you know, maybe what I, yeah.
So would you say that that lesson of forgiveness that you imparted to your daughter, is it more a lesson of forgiving other people or forgiving yourself because your body had failed you? Was it yourself?
Yes, such great questions. I
Question.
love you more.
Yes.
I had to do both.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had to do both.
And forgiving yourself is tough.
Forgiving myself was the hardest to do.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing, I didn't realize that I literally hated myself. I didn't know it until I went into those deep therapeutic wells where I had to really go in and find out what the real trouble was. And I realized I hated the way I looked because I'm an invisible black person. You don't know
that's a
I'm
whole
black when
nother
you look at
story.
me. So people hated me all of my life for the way that I looked, still do. You know, and I didn't realize that I hated myself. It's why I don't like to take pictures. Because when I see myself in the pictures, I'm reminded of how I look.
I have to tell you something,
Right.
and we all walk around with it. When I first saw your image, I saw it on the online. I wasn't sure if you were African American or not,
Right.
and I'm saying that only because
That's okay.
I have members. I have a sister, as a matter of fact, who's your complexion.
Oh, wow.
And she's by birth, her hair is like a dark blonde,
Okay.
and so I know what you're talking
Exactly.
about because a lot of people don't realize whether if you're very dark or if you're very fair,
Exactly.
you deal with the same issue.
You deal with the same
Same issues.
issues.
and
Exactly.
people, you know,
Yeah.
being in the middle
Yeah.
is like
Yeah.
the best place to be, if you will,
Yeah.
if it comes to complexion. So,
I've been perceived as a biracial child my entire life.
Right.
And I'm like, I get how they feel, although I'm not biracial. You know what I mean? both of my parents are black. My grandparents on both sides are black, and my great-grandparents on both sides are black. Now, it does go down in the lineage.
In the fourth generation.
In the fourth generation. But are you kidding me? There's nowhere I go to this day that people don't go, she's black, honey, she's black.
Right.
And you know what? And why I think that if we ever get there, why does it matter?
Why does it matter?
Right. Why do we
because
You know,
it does
are you a
so
good
much damage.
Yeah. Well, are you a good person?
exactly.
Are you a caring person?
Absolutely.
You know, those are the things.
What's
that
in your
really
heart?
matter. Yeah,
really
that's
matter.
what really matters.
Yeah.
And I know with myself, because my grandmother, my grandmother, my grandfather, they were awesome people. And even growing up in the Deep South,
where you know they can't take it.
yeah, and you know, I was always taught to love everybody.
Yes,
Same
I
here.
was too.
You know, and that was a big lesson for my grandmother to teach, because I remember it as a little girl, you know, Caucasian, the insurance man coming to the house and calling my grandmother Lula.
Right, first name.
It was like, as a child, I was like, her name is Mrs. Duncan.
Right.
Not Lula. As a
Not-
child, that registered. And so I found that to be so disrespectful. Because we were raised that you said,
Absolutely.
you know, Mr.
Mr.
and
and
Mrs.
Right.
to
everybody.
your
Exactly.
to your
It's a sign of
elder
respect.
elders, you know, and that was out of respect. So I saw that, but my in spite of the fact that she was being disrespected, it did not cloud her ability to know that everybody
everyday life for
should
her.
be loved, you
Yes.
know, and so I grew up with that, and so consequently, I don't look at people like that. I mean, I have a lot of white friends, and you know, as
All
many,
races, all
all
kinds.
races, all genders,
Yeah.
you know, depending whatever the sexual orientation. You know, I have
Yes,
a lot of
I too.
I don't really
I just
care.
don't
It's like
care.
I
Yeah.
really like you.
Exactly,
care.
right. I
And
was
that's
saying
all
that.
that matters to me.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't understand that.
Exactly.
When you come from that space of negativity and you're disliking or hating someone else,
Absolutely.
it really is coming
Right.
to the place of
probably
it has to
means
do with what you feel about
About
yourself.
yourself.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And until
Yeah.
you forgive yourself, I believe it's challenging to forgive others until you do the dance with your own self.
Exactly.
And then the
Exactly.
other recognition I had that changed my life, I write about it in the book, how I saw this woman on one of the talk shows who stood up, psychologist, and said, forgiveness is a gift you give yourself. And I went, aha.
It really is.
That's it.
Yeah.
And it's an act of love.
It really
Forgiveness
is.
is an act of love.
Yeah.
And
It's an
because if
act
you
of
love
self-love.
yourself, you can't do anything but love somebody
Somebody
else.
else.
I mean,
These-
it's just, it happens.
Yeah.
It's-
And so it makes a difference, and it heals instantly.
Yeah.
It heals
yeah.
instantly. And vis-a-vis the central theme of my book is love is the answer. And it includes forgiveness, compassion, kindness. All of that is love in some form.
You're very fortunate in
Very.
that, you know, to
Very.
live vicariously, if you will,
Yeah.
through the experiences that your mom have had over the course of her life, but also to be able to take away the wisdom, which a lot of young people, unfortunately, they dismiss or they're ashamed of, or a number of other reasons, not realizing, you know what, you've just been given a jewel, and you need to treasure that because what you know and what your mother experienced, you learn by her experiences. You didn't have to
Absolutely.
experience what she did, the
Exactly.
She used
pain.
to tell me, don't make it all the way to 40 and still be stupid. She would say, listen, don't watch me do all of this and then turn around and be stupid.
Exactly.
And I thought, wow, you know. And I used to wonder that about my friends who had a bunch of older brothers and sisters, knowing that they got in all the trouble, so you're not going to get away with anything, or you get away with everything because they got tired from, you know, running down the other
That's
kids.
usually
So
the
now you
case.
get,
It's like,
and
I'm
it's
done.
one or the other, you
Yeah.
know.
Right.
And for me, like I said, I do have siblings, but we did not grow up together. So I grew up as I'm her only child, and so. And I grew up with my mom, and so
I'm shaking my head because there's so much similarity here. I mentioned several times,
Yeah.
I live with my grandparents.
Okay,
I have
yeah.
3 brothers, 3 sisters, but I was raised as an only child.
Really,
Really?
Yeah, so people just,
wow.
they automatically
And, you know,
assume that I
I'm-
don't have any siblings, but
I'm even
Interesting.
getting over
Yeah.
that. Sometimes I feel guilty because I'm like, you know, I don't call them enough. I don't, you know, but when you didn't have that,
Right.
You know, I was so jealous of all my friends and cousins who had,
Yeah.
both parents and brothers and sisters. And
Do you find that they're closer to each other than they are to you?
Some, not really. Not. It just depends on on the people. Because I mean, when I look back at how we were as children and see how we are now as adults and how we deal with our parents, I mean, we definitely went through the rebellious thing, and my mama don't know nothing, and she getting on my nerves, and we are, I mean,
I hope my daughter's watching this
yeah,
show.
I'm telling you, we went
went
had
through that.
We had that.
How long
yeah.
did that last?
I
Give me
mean,
hope
maybe,
this morning.
in my teenage years,
Yeah.
and
Up until about the late teenage years,
late
too.
teenage
Up to
years.
about
I mean,
the early 20s.
Now I wasn't stupid enough to do nothing real crazy because she did not play. And it is no fun to get in trouble when you're an only child. And this is before the internet and everything. So, having a TV or having a phone or having to go outside was a major thing. And so when you got on punishment and couldn't do anything, it didn't take me that long to figure it out that, okay, you can do that if you want to, but you're going to be on the ground for about 30 days. So you would want to get it together. And that discipline I spoke of, she didn't play.
Gosh.
And
But look at you now.
Yeah.
I mean, you have this exciting project. Now this is, oh gosh. Who is this you?
That's all me.
Girl, you have many looks. Now you were
Yes.
blonde and red there, right?
Yes, why not?
Why not?
I don't know if you
Why
can see
not?
this, but we're going to make sure that we put an image of this on camera because you got to see this up close.
And this is an exclusive. No one has seen this yet. No one has seen this yet.
This
You are
one?
the first.
Oh my gosh.
This is my brand new record. I could get up and shout right now if I wouldn't mess
The
up the
groovement.
microphone. But this is my second solo album, and it's not released just yet.
Right,
We're
okay.
preparing it now, and but obviously it's finished and done and packaged, and the videos have been shot and all of that. So we're now just building the strategy, and which brings me to where I am now as an independent artist.
Okay.
And baby, listen, that is no joke to be an independent artist. Independent is code for you pay for everything.
So listen.
Just so we're clear.
I have to tell you, we're doing, and I'm going to make the announcement here. We have a concert series for one of
Am
my
I booked? Wait,
for one-
am I booked? Am I booked?
You
for
got
one
our
of my
attention.
clients, organization called Gideon's Promise, and what they do is provide defense. They train public defenders to go into poor communities and make sure that they have a level playing field.
Okay, wait, say that one more
awesome.
time.
Gideon's Promise.
Gideon's Promise. Okay.
They train public defenders
Okay.
to go into poor communities
Oh,
and make
wonderful.
sure that people who cannot afford an attorney
Yes.
have a level playing field.
Wonderful.
Brilliant.
And it is a
Brilliant.
wonderful organization.
Oh,
and
that's
so
so
we
wonderful.
are kicking off the very first concert. We're doing 4 mini concerts, and then pray with me and send all this wonderful energy
Yes,
to
we're
right
November
there with you.
7th. I see this vision of doing a big concert at the Verizon Center
Oh,
where we
yes.
bring all kinds of genres of music to talk
Yeah.
about and bring light to and raise money so they can do more. Talk
Wow.
about justice in this country.
Nice.
So that's what
Good
we're
for
doing.
you.
And so I'm saying that to you because you need to come sing, girl.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Try and stop me. I keep a mic in my purse just in case. I'm just kidding. But I would love to. Consider it done.
Yeah.
Just
yeah.
call me and say it's time. I'm ready.
I will. I'll
Yeah.
make sure that April gets all of the details.
Yeah, absolutely.
And,
Thank you. Thank you. And
We're actually doing and put you on the spot again. We're doing
Okay.
if you're not doing something, we are doing the
It's a
first
Thursday.
mini concert. I'll give you the information before you leave.
Absolutely.
We would love if you would come and support us, and also have as many of your friends support
Done.
the effort, because
Okay.
it's so important.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
nobody can bring a crowd together like wonderful singers and musicians.
Nothing
That's
like
right.
it.
So, honey,
Nothing
I
like
am
it.
bowing to you today.
It's-
Because y'all going to help me
consider
get
it
this done.
Done.
Consider it
Yeah,
done.
absolutely.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and
26.
to touch on what you're saying about that, people. I'm gonna go on my little box for a minute. People look at the music industry as, fluff, and
Oh, honey, you guys have power.
That's right.
they have no clue. Okay, and don't get caught up in the craziness. And I don't want to throw any artists under the bus, but we do have the artists who are, you know, in the mainstream because of not so great shenanigans. I'm just going to say it like that, right? And then you have the rest of us who live, breathe, and sleep this. And music really does make the world go round.
It does.
Really, really
It does.
does. There's no culture really without it. There's no, even if you don't understand it or don't like it or don't get it, you know, there's some part in everybody's culture that involves creativity and music. And you want to talk about something that's healing, you know, that song that makes you cry, the song that makes you dance, the song that makes you think of someone or reflect on someone. I sing at weddings and funerals a lot. I still, even between, I can be on the stage, 50,000 people in some fabulous arena, and we'll come right on home and go sing at somebody's wedding. And you know what I mean? Because what you take from that and what you give them in that moment is something they never forget. For me, it was a gig. Sometimes I don't even know the people that I'm singing for, but for them, they will forever say, and we had Sylver Logan Sharp singing our wedding, or you know, whatever that is. And that in itself is powerful. So when you tell someone who is going into theater or producing or composition or anything that has to do with music and performing, okay, and you have this young child or, you know, relative who wants to sing and dance, and you're like, oh boy, here we go, you're going to medical school. Okay, they can do both, but don't make music less than. You know what I'm saying?
I do know.
Don't make the arts less than. You don't say that about football players. You know what I mean? They can do whatever they want. They can make a cajillion dollars to catch the little ball and run down the field if they make it, and they're gonna get paid whether they do or not. Listen, y'all know I'm telling the truth, and somehow that's incredibly important, and it is important because it takes skill to you know, not kill yourself while you're being trampled by enormous guys and catching balls and running, you know, the length of football fields and things like that. So that's a very well respected craft until the player does something stupid. You know what I mean? But the craft never gets it never gets thrown. You never throw football under the bus, but you'll throw the player or whatever he did because he's still human. It's on the field where his talent is. What he does when he's off the field, well, that's another conversation. But somehow we don't diminish football as a result of the craziness around football. But the minute something happens in the music industry, it's like, well, you know, that's the music industry. It's like, wait a minute now, because you don't say that when you're at the Dance Theater of Harlem. You know, you don't say that when the African dancers are, you know, that is not twerking. Okay?
Exactly.
There's a difference. There is a difference. And you can either teach them the difference or wait for them to learn it themselves. You know, but you teach the respect of the dance move. You teach where it comes from. I was talking to my cousin one day. We were having this debate about Beyonce, and at the time his children were not allowed to watch her because she's beautiful and sensual,
very sensual,
and
yes.
all of that. And I said, yeah, but that's your mind thinking about the craziness. They're not thinking about that. Am I right?
Right.
She's 12. She should know what sensual is.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
She's looking at the hair and the outfit and the dance move. There's nothing about that child that is thinking that this is sexual, right?
Yeah.
So I said, enter Shakira.
Yeah.
Who's also beautiful and sensual and all that belly dancing and moving. That's part of her culture.
Right.
So let's not make it nasty.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Let's not make that nasty.
Exactly.
That's the opportunity to say, okay, here's this, and she's, you know, from Colombia. She does this, that, and the third, and then, you know, Beyonce, and then, you know, is doing her thing, and there are some things that you don't need to see.
Right.
And I love Beyonce, don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying. But there are so many other things that you could show them.
Exactly. And also the fact
she
that
works
she has
hard.
a beautiful voice. I love when she's singing.
Beautiful voice.
Because a lot of times people miss that. She has an incredible voice.
They're so busy looking at her.
Now, but what I will say, though,
it gets them to the concert, though.
It gets them to the concert.
Exactly.
Now, when she first started out, and it was about the gowns, and it was about the this and that, and then now we're moving to a little more of the risque, you know, what do you call it? I was going to say chair, Y'all
The
know what I'm trying to say.
choreography.
Right.
Yeah, there we go. That's
Yeah.
a much better word. You know, now we do need to separate a little bit what they're seeing. But my point is, don't make the craft
Right.
the guilty party here.
Yeah.
Explain
because
the
there are a
difference.
lot of great musicians out there, and I know we are going to run out of time before I
Yeah.
get a chance to. I need you to talk very quickly about the project. Wow, this is a full project. This is not a mini CD.
No. This is a full
This
CD.
is how many?
14
songs, and I can't wait to hear because you know you brought this for me, and I
Yes.
love the packaging.
Thank you.
you.
Thank
So
you.
elegant
Thank you.
and very. I mean,
is.
you send this to me in the mail, and I'm like, oh, what is this?
Well, good.
So
Good.
being a marketing and branding person, whoever did this did a
Redhead Productions.
Redhead Productions. You did a splendid job.
My production company, Redhead Productions, is all things that have to do. I do everything from if you were to call me to book me for a gig, you know, it's Redhead Productions. If you were call me to say, I have a group, can you work with them? Or I'd like for you to come in the studio and record or write. All things music, creative. Sometimes I do a little styling and coaching, stage etiquette, things like that, because we're losing that.
Yeah,
We're
and
losing
it's
that.
very, very important, especially if you
Yeah.
want people to take you seriously.
We're losing the etiquette of,
Yeah.
of how to behave in dressing rooms, how to behave on stage, how to recover, because you're going to make a mistake.
And you know that you bring up an interesting point, and we are really running out of time. But when I think back to Motown, and I think about Diana Ross and how those groups, those people, the women and the men were trained to go and
right.
perform professionally.
Absolutely.
They are icons for a reason
Absolutely.
because they didn't just take their voice; they took the package.
The whole package.
And I love the fact
I
that you're
come from
trying
that.
to.
And I learned from
Yeah,
that.
you're trying to bring that back. And we are out of time.
Already?
And so,
went by so
but you know
fast.
what? I want people, and I got a feeling we're going to be having another conversation.
Yes.
Can
I come back when it's released?
Yes, you
Okay.
can. You can. You have my word
Wonderful.
on that. So, because I really wanted people to learn a lot about the relationship with you and your mom. And
Because we didn't get
We
to
didn't
tell you
talk
about our
silverware.
silverware jewelry business,
Yeah.
which was born out of her illness.
Yeah.
Girl, we need a few more hours.
Yeah.
We
But
need
you
a
know
few more
what?
hours.
In the meantime, I want you to look at that camera and tell people where they can go to learn more about Sylver, and also for you to talk about
Okay.
yesterday when I was crazy.
Right.
So why
Well,
don't you start?
You can find out all things Sylver Logan Sharp at sylverlogansharp.com, which is SYLVERLOGANSHARP.com. You can also check out our one-of-a-kind jewelry line, which we hand make every single piece, and that is SYLVERWEAR.com. Silverware and sylverlogansharp.com. I look forward to hearing from you. God bless you.
It is awesome. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for
Thank you.
spending your morning with me. This
That
has
was
been
great.
amazing.
Wow.
And I'm so glad you joined us because we've had an awesome time. And I thank you so much for taking the time to spend your mornings with me. I know you could be someplace else, but instead you decide to come and hang out here. And that's going to wrap it up for us this week, and I will see you on the flip side.